Our next interview will be with Daisy Lloyd, Mrs. Daisy Lloyd. And Mrs. Lloyd, we are so happy to have you to be part of our Trailblazer recognition event.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you again. For those who don't know, Mrs. Lloyd is really one of the first when it comes to the real estate professional industry. So what we're going to do is just take a minute and just say or ask, who is Daisy Lloyd? And give us some background about you and how you eventually got into the real estate industry, if you would.
Well, I'm a farmer's daughter.
Okay.
I was born in Kansas and then raised in Topeka, left Topeka at 17 to go to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and never went back home. And so, and that's where I met my husband, finished Howard, and then we eventually came to Indianapolis. I spent the first few years raising my children, and then was approached by the Democratic Party here to run for political office as a member of the General Assembly. There had never been any black people or women in the legislature before, and so I ran, was successfully elected, and at that time there was a movement going on to expand the highways, and in order to do that they were cutting through African American neighborhoods, taking homes in our best areas, and that then meant there was a disruption for our people, for my people, in terms of trying to get a fair price for their property and using that money to find adequate housing elsewhere. After my term in the legislature, I decided to enter real estate, and I was able to get my designation, through some training, and started my practice with Bill Ray, who was a very prominent black real estate broker. And he, at the time, our offices were in the Walker Building, which still stands as a historic. Yeah.
Yes.
And I worked with Bill until I had the time required to become a realtor. And then I went out on my own. I moved to the north side and began the difficult job of trying to gain access to good listings in good neighborhoods for black people. And I say we because I had staff, we were fairly successful at that. I felt that we were as successful as we could be. What I did was to turn over my practice, my real estate, to my daughter.
All right.
And the other great thing I think that we were able to do was to bring young black men and women into the business, let them see firsthand what it was like, work there. And in working there, they were able to get the knowledge and the training they needed to get their license. So there are a number of young people that I am delighted to say got their start with me, and that's basically my story.
It sounds like a wonderful story. A couple of things I might want to ask you. You made a comment that your office was on the north side,
right?
And so I'd like to know where that office was, and when you were knocking at people's doors about the listings, wanting to see, when they had expired. What neighborhoods did you pretty much, you and your staff, what neighborhoods were you pretty much selling?
You mean selling?
Everything, yeah, the whole listing, selling. I mean, when you list, obviously the house gets sold.
Right. First of all, I only showed good properties in good neighborhoods.
Such as?
Such as Crow's Nest Drive, Avalon Hills, North Meridian Street. Well, let's see. I guess the main areas on the north side, I sold properties on the south side to Salvation Army officers when they would come in town because they wanted that neighborhood. And by the way, I had a mixed clientele in terms of buyers.
What would you like to leave with the audience, the real estate industry, no matter what? Something that we can, you know, take home and just dwell on.
Well, you probably want me to do it in 1 minute. I'm going to take 2.
You take as long as you want.
No, one of the things, and this was major, was opening up the multiple listing organization, MIBOR.
Yes.
That was major. And it wasn't necessarily easy. 5 years in the business was required to apply as a realtor. You know, that's the major organization. I had just gotten into that area of having been in business 5 years. When I first applied, I was turned down. And then I put the message out that if I was turned down again, I would serve an injunction, I would sue the organization and stop all sales of any properties. And I just sent that back that was my message back, and I was invited to apply again, and I was accepted.
Tell us about the Realtist, when you became a Realtist and how that came about.
Well, the Realtist, of course, was the only organization available for black brokers. And I joined, and then what was exciting for me, I got to know the national, I think he was the national chairman of the Realtist organization in Washington, D.C. And can't remember his name now, but I went to Washington to their national conference.
Yes.
And I was so impressed with the ability of that group. And well, it's like you feel like you come home. And were it not for that organization, as black brokers, as black real estaters, we would not have had a place. So in the meantime, we support one another.
So would you say that's your word of wisdom, is to support one another?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't stress that too much.
Mrs. Lloyd, you have been such an inspiration to me on this interview. And we so thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
All righty.
My pleasure.